Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Usually on this one, we actually have an AI podcast, but I thought it makes sense to quickly do a tutorial on one particular prototype that I had in mind actually for a few weeks, especially because we're interacting with many customer interviews these days to launch our AI software as a service. Before we get started though, my name is Cyril and I've been building AI products since 2023. Once again, on this channel, there is a podcast where we go a lot deeper into how to actually be building such systems, like, for example, how to get started, how to do marketing, and actually how you land your first client. So definitely check out the other videos on the channel. But in today's one, that's why we're already on the screen share here. We're actually been building just in a no-code platform with one of these coding agents. I think one of the most overlooked ones, actually, because most people, they're using Replit, maybe some other people are using Lovable, but this one might be the most powerful engine that you can actually be building agentic systems, or just generally actually been building code that is really up to date, really cutting edge, and actually looks like you can really be selling it to businesses in all sorts of sizes. What we are building today is a so-called meeting note generator or meeting note software as a service for entrepreneurs. Think about you're an entrepreneur and you're always talking to all these stakeholders or your potential clients actually, and you need to have some means and mechanism to really be taking notes of all these interviews. You might be talking to users or to legal experts or maybe to potential investors, and you just have to take all these notes. Usually you would do that on Notion, you would do it maybe on some other software, but this particular software as a service should basically be targeting, again, entrepreneurs and make note taking a lot easier, and then also have agentic features into it. Just for reference, I will put this initial prompt, which might be the most important prompt actually for the video, into the description for you to completely copy for free. Basically what I'm telling the agentic system here on Versal v0, that's the platform we are going to use, what technology stack it should be using, and also more or less how the structure should be. While I'm running this initial prompt actually already, I quickly can walk you through what it actually should do in the first place. Once again, you are talking to all these people and all these individuals, so it should actually have an integration on meeting notes, basically. So every time there's a meeting, it should receive a summary of this particular meeting. So that's really a handy feature, especially if you're running 10 or 15 interviews per week or even per day, and you would want to have that structured from the actual second you actually finish the interview. And whatever Versal v0 is now going to do is basically taking all these initial inputs I gave it. For example, I would like to have a dashboard, of course. I would like to have some sort of overview of the calendar. There might be the integration, for example, into Calendly. This could also be easily engineered here on Versal v0. You can actually be, again, introducing all these other software and tools into Versal v0 as well. There should also be an action items element, which usually is a little bit overlooked, especially if you use Notion or if you use another note-taking app. And also lately, of course, with agentic AI, you would want to have some sort of automations at hand. This particular prototype, and also in this tutorial, I'm just showing the actual front end, but then it's very easy to actually talk the artificial intelligence engine to it. I might actually be doing a follow-up video where we simply basically do an N8N workflow of a particular automation we want it to be triggered after each meeting is done, and we can integrate it very easily here into Versal v0. So this is just one of the kickstarting point. Of course, you can be building many features into that. And of course, what we also want later on is some AI insights. So that's the second artificial intelligence component. We might actually have a chatbot, or all these entrepreneurs have a chatbot into it, and they could be interacting, for example, asking best practices about a particular meeting, or there might actually be a database you can populate, for example, who did you talk to lately, and then the AI insights feature basically would initiate and give out some notions on, you might actually be talking about this particular topic with this particular stakeholder, and so on and so forth. So there's AI insight button is actually where probably this system is really the most powerful. Otherwise, it is just another note-taking app. So we might actually be building a lot more features, and we might be talking to all these stakeholders, and then actually we'll launch this product. Of course, ideally, again, Versal v0 is just the initial stage of the product, and then from there you would then iterate through customer feedbacks, integrate new features, which is basically really done in a matter of a few seconds. While this is running, I will probably resume the video just in a few seconds. This took a little bit longer than I expected. So see you when the actual first build is ready to be displayed. So then we're actually back with the first output of Versal v0. Once again, this is just the first one, and from here we have to iterate. Just if you're completely new to Versal v0, a few more things maybe worth noting. Here on the top right, there is the version control, meaning how many times did you iterate through a design. So each prompt will give you a new version. You can always jump back to the previous version by clicking, for example, the trash button. So I'll go up quickly. During the time that you were waiting, or that I've been waiting actually for 10 or 12 minutes for the first draft, I gave it once again a prompt because the initial one wasn't really that sophisticated to be looking like a modern software as a service based on the design principles, for example, like Salesforce. If you don't like the actual output based on this prompt, you can always go to delete message and you'll just spin it back to this particular stage. I use that actually ongoingly. Sometimes I try something, it doesn't really work out, you have to go back. Because once again, once you basically agree with one particular output and you take it from there, it's sometimes a little bit difficult to actually go back. Because you actually are removing all the subsequent prompts after this one. So what we actually are now going to do is, this is just the very first output, right? But it got it more or less okay. There is some sort of logo. Yes, it looks similar to a software as a service, at least from a very skeleton point of view. We have the dashboard, we have the meetings, we have some action items, which are the ones that actually, as our clients, are really the ones that are super handy. And there will be some automations. We can integrate, once again, ongoingly, some artificial intelligence-based agents on N8N, for example, or on OpenAI AgentKit. Stay tuned for these videos. I will definitely do a lot more integrations of Versal v0 and these agentic builders and the AI insights. And this might actually be populated automatically if we link a large language model in the back of this particular software as a service. Now, what I don't like is the naming, what actually didn't give a name. So please rename the SaaS to, and we call it meeting force. For the entire design, please use a dark blue color. So I shoot that as well. So now with more meat to the bone, so now the actual structure of the code is at place. We have all these classes in place. We have all the main branches of the actual SaaS in place as well. Each and every single prompt will be generated a lot faster. So this initial build, just to actually this point, took around 15 or 20 minutes, which is a very long time, but you can then assume that the code, especially because this particular software now, Versal v0, is most likely running on Sonnet 4.5, the most advanced coding model. It's fairly sophisticated. If you ask me 6 or 9 months ago, we would have continuously needing to check actually the code, but currently we can more or less assume that the actual backbone of the code is sophisticated. Once again, we also, in the initial prompt, we told Versal v0 what technologies to use or what tech stack to use. We told it should use React. The second option would be Angular as a front end, and any backend should be in Java Springboot. These are like the sophisticated stacks that most startups actually are using, or large corporations. So we didn't leave it to Versal v0 to go figure out. So we actually already gave it the stack. So that's a bit of a shortcut, because sometimes it just goes on and builds the software as a service in whatever shape, way, or form, with whatever tech stack it just comes up with. So the more precise we are in the initial prompt, the better really is for the first output. And then from there, we can just simply iterate. Now it's just updating view of the color schemes. Sometimes this might actually be looking very, very good in the very first time we actually prompt it. Sometimes it might actually be looking horrible like we did now. So that's actually a good example how not to be doing it. So I can go here, please rename the SaaS to meeting force. That's okay, but I want to delete the message. And it just basically just goes back to the initial point. And we say, once again, just please rename it to meeting force and remove AI powered nodes as well. This is like a very simple prompt. From here, at least we have the correct naming in place, and then we can continuously iterate. Again, this might be actually going for 1 or 2 hours, but the more important thing is, any feature in these software as a services, of course, would be needing to come either based on your own experience. So if you're an entrepreneur or founder, you would know what's going in here, or you're immediately reaching out to entrepreneurs, maybe founders online, to then be fine-tuning all these features as well. Just from the bottom of my heart, of course, there should be some sort of meeting organizer. A summary would also be very handy. But a big caveat, of course, is that all these buttons here, like for example, schedule a meeting or join the meeting, join a meeting here, and so on and so forth, or the action items, add an action item, create automation, all these things are now up to you as builders actually to be populating. So each and every time you would then go through, and that's really the no-code approach of the entire component here, you would tell it, if you click on schedule meeting, you need to create the logic behind that. So that's really up to you to still be doing it. Of course, you can leave it to Versal v0. Please do the most adequate notion of these buttons. But I would usually, the way I would design it, I would go through each and every single button. I would populate the logic to it. And if it has an AI component, of course, I would have to trigger an event. And then it goes back to N8 and does the compute of some large language model I select, and it brings it back to the SaaS. So it's a little bit this iteration that is with Versal v0 very, very fast. And this, of course, is just v3. Usually on many of my other builds, be it, for example, our product landing page that has around 250 builds. If it's a more sophisticated prototyping, we're using 300, 400 builds. So this is really the work that you can do nowadays in 2025, completely without code, but you still need to know how to prompt the system in an adequate fashion. And maybe just lastly, if you're then really happy, for example, in build 250 or build 300, you can then click on publish, and then you can do two particular things. You can publish it to production, meaning it's just sitting somewhere hosted by Versal v0. It doesn't have the domain you might desire. So you need to go configure your custom domain. This is super easy. Again, might do a separate tutorial on that as well. You can simply buy the domain for like 15 or 16 bucks. And then you can link it to actually your software as a service. If it's sitting on the internet, you probably are building a landing page first, then connect that to the domain of your desire, and then you can do the login components once again here. So this is really, once again, completely no code. That's really the fascinating aspect of here. It looks pretty sophisticated because back in the days, many of these builds, they needing some weeks. And now the video is more or less 20 or 25 minutes long, and we actually be building the first prototype of Meeting Force, some features here as well. So the last thing I'm actually going to do is across the entire SaaS, please build a chatbot function on the side, make it visible in all of the menu items. What is it really allowing it to do? Most of the SaaS software today, they don't really have this chatbot component yet integrated. Many are catching up. But if you're building it like this, you actually are launching AI native, which is a truly unique feature. So while this is running, I'm actually quickly looking for the code that I've been building. And then once again, I can all be basically handing out the prompts I used for the more advanced version of Meeting Force and how that can actually be looking like, and maybe some additional features as well. But it's just to get it started. These are the first few, maybe 4 particular prompts you would be running for your first prototype. We are actually kickstarted and jump-started a few versions, as you can see on the top right. We are on V21, and in the meantime, I've been actually ongoingly be putting more and more and more prompts into it to really be refining the UI in the way I desire it. We finally have the blue accent color of Feedback Force. We also have this orange dot, a very small detail in the design world, but I really like that. We have the dashboard that is fairly looking good as well. Of course, what we also did before the cut quickly is we actually added Feedback GPT. This is fully responsive as well, so the user can ask a question. For example, how can I prepare best for my next meeting with John? And then ideally, of course, you can click send here, and the AI is actually be generating this particular response. But of course, we haven't actually been connected. We haven't actually been connecting Feedback Force to the AI engine in the first place. This will be the next step, the next logical step that we can then be using in N8N. What you also did, just from a user perspective, sometimes there might be a little bit of a cumbersome way of what questions should I ask, or maybe what should I even be asking the AI in the first place. Here's just a predefined, message. It's a super small nuance, but that actually might be a good thing to do as well. So just to give the user a bit of predefined messages or something she or he can edit in the first place. But that actually looks pretty good. Once again, we have the chat functionality on the right. We also have the meetings. They look very much similar to the ones we had before. Of course, I had to reiterate to make the buttons a little bit more sophisticated. The action items also look pretty good now. We have an overview of many different action items. Ideally, we can then, for example, tell the AI which action items are due today, and the AI would come up with a populated answer from the action items list. So this has also, of course, to be connected later on. Then you have the automations. Once again, once a meeting is ending with a particular client, you would want to maybe have a follow-up email that is automatically sent. Thanks for joining. Here's a meeting summary, for example. You might actually have some reminders. You can toggle them off and on. And at the end of the day, once again, the AI feature is really the AI engine. You might actually be generating a report, for example, or just any other AI setting you would want to do. Maybe just lastly, what we can try to do quickly in the AI Insight tab, please include an AI autonomy slider. What this actually means in many software as a services, maybe in the future, there will be this so-called AI or agentic AI slider. How much autonomy do we actually give to the AI agents in the first place? And probably most likely in the years to come, we will have some setting. How much should the AI agent do without our intervention, with us humans in the loop, and how much should it do autonomously? So this particular feature, if it actually comes up in due time, it will just help us to align the AI agent, how much autonomy the agent should pursue, again, without putting us in the loop in the first place. But we need to have some sort of setting how we can place that. In most modern AI agentic systems, it's just assumed this is actually the degree of autonomy, but it's actually not been really thought well through how that actually can be looking like on a UI basis. So this actually comes up pretty nicely. We can then say, for example, this has to be tweaked well with the AI engine, of course, as well, that we can choose the degree of autonomy. Maybe some users are fully autonomous. A lot of automations will be triggered, a lot of automated reports, maybe a lot of actions, maybe a lot of tool calling, and maybe some other users are a little bit more on the manual side still. They still want to have control over their workflows. And maybe with an agentic slider or an AI autonomy control center like this one, you can actually be doing that. Once again, this is still responsive, which is always nice. And you can also have some sort of accent call up here, which is also a cool thing. You would then, again, go about publishing that. You would go about getting more feedback in that. And this is just the first maybe tutorial, once again, how you can be building your first prototype, again, with Versal v0, without an AI integration. So the next video, hopefully, I will be doing a little bit of an additional one that do a very similar build for an actual problem that you can be building, but then also integrating the artificial intelligence engine to it without any Python code. With that said, we will be at the end of the tutorial, and we are really appreciating if you have some questions and some comments, because we really are just some on the initial stages of doing actually these tutorials, and we will be doing a lot more in the future. So stay tuned. See you in the next video. Also subscribe and like. If you have a comment, once again, drop it, and we'll see you in the next one, especially in the episodes of the podcast we do every single week. Take care. Bye-bye.